Following Dick Grayson's retirement as the original Robin, stepping out from behind the shadow of Batman and becoming Nightwing in the process, he was replaced with Jason Todd, who would don the identity of Robin and become the second Boy Wonder. Introduced in Batman number 357 in March of 1983, Todd's origin was very similar to that of Dick Grayson's. He too was a member of an acrobat family, whose parents were killed after the circus they performed in was blackmailed, this time by Killer Croc rather than Tony Zuko. Todd's personality was also very similar to Grayson's at first, being exuberant and naive. Following the continuity-altering events of 1985's Crisis on Infinite Earths, Todd's backstory was rewritten, having him a street orphan whose mother died of a drug overdose or disease in some cases, and his father disappearing after botching an assignment while working under Two-Face. Todd would steal the front tires off the Batmobile as it sat in Crime Alley, in one of the very few moments Batman actually laughs. The Dark Knight gets them back and the seeds of their relationship are planted. Shortly afterwards, Todd would aid him in capturing a street gang, and Batman would make him the new Robin. This newer, grittier origin led to a darker characterization of Robin. Todd's Boy Wonder was brash, foul-mouthed, and fueled by rage. His rebellious and impulsive behavior caused tension between him and Batman, especially after Todd learns that his father was killed by Two-Face and Bruce has been keeping it from him. They still made for a great dynamic duo, but Todd became increasingly unpopular among fans, who I suppose wanted him to be more like Dick Grayson was. In response to this new Robin beginning to sour fans, the editor of Batman titles at the time, Dennis O'Neil, devised a plan. Through a 900 number voting system, fans could call one of two separate numbers to determine whether or not Todd would live or die. The voting began on September 15, 1988, and lasted for 36 hours straight. Over 10,000 votes were cast, and the results were very close. So close that no matter which outcome happened, the fan base was going to be left polarized regardless. It was inevitable. In the end, 5,343 voted to kill Todd, and 5,271 voted for his survival. It's surreal how close these numbers were. What a pickle the Batman writers had put themselves in. Today, I'll be reviewing and analyzing Batman: A Death in the Family from December of 1988, the storyline that depicted the death of Jason Todd, the second Robin. It's one of the most iconic Batman stories out there, and much like the vote itself, left fans quite divided when it first came out. There was media backlash over it, with many upset that DC would decide to kill such a beloved pop culture icon as Robin. In recent years, however, A Death in the Family has been widely regarded as one of the best written Batman storylines. It's one of the most significant stories in the Dark Knight's long and illustrious history that has had a strong influence and lingering presence on the entire mythology since its release. So, without any further delay, let's dive right into the 1988 classic, Batman: A Death in the Family, the death of Jason Todd. As Batman and Robin stake out the main warehouse of a child pornography ring and await police backup, Jason runs out of patience and rushes in against Bruce's orders. Batman notices that Robin has been far more reckless and moody as of late, more so than usual. They defeat the criminals, and Bruce confronts Jason, telling him he almost got himself killed, and that they need to follow procedures. He wanted to let Gordon in on the bust. When he asks Jason if he thinks all this is a game, he tells Batman all of life is a game, and storms off. Several hours later, at Wayne Manor, Bruce speaks with Alfred in regards to Jason's behavior, with them both agreeing that he seems to not value his own safety, as though he doesn't care if he lives or dies. Bruce believes it was too soon for Jason to become Robin. He hadn't accepted the death of his parents yet, and is too unstable. Effective immediately, Jason will be removed from active duty, something he hears while standing outside the room, which causes him to leave in anger. Soon after, the Joker escapes from Arkham Asylum, having killed 8 men when he created his deadly laughing gas using common cleaning supplies. At his hideout, he reveals a cruise missile and launch vehicle he obtained from a military friend of his. His contact seemingly died unexpectedly, and the Joker plans on selling the missile to some terrorists in the Middle East. Jason finds himself in Crime Alley, at the old apartment where he used to live with his parents. He recalls his past and how they both died, leaving him an orphan. His mother's friend, Miss Walker, calls him into her apartment and gives him a box containing some of his parents' possessions, before sending him on his way. When Jason returns to Wayne Manor, he opens the box of memories, only to find that his mother, Catherine Todd, was actually his stepmother. His real one had a name starting with an S, and must still be out there somewhere, hopefully alive. He uses his dad's address book to find 3 separate women, and then the Batcomputer to locate their whereabouts, all in the Middle East. How convenient. He steals some of Bruce's credit cards and boards a plane to get there. While this is happening, Batman searches the apartment of one of Joker's associates and finds a passport and visa for Lebanon. He then locates Joker's hideout and comes to the realization he is in possession of a nuclear weapon and is intending to sell it to terrorists. He sets off for Lebanon. Batman reaches the Middle East and locates a military plane Joker had hijacked. The nuclear weapon is gone though, and after removing his cowl to become Bruce Wayne, Batman is contacted by Alfred, who tells him Jason had taken a flight to Israel. Robin breaks into a military base and learns that his first mother candidate, a member of the Israeli Secret Service named Sharmin Rosen, is currently undercover in Lebanon, staying at the Hotel Blue. But what do you know? After Batman interrogates a terrorist, he learns that the missile is being offered up for sale by a crook named Peter Brando at the exact same hotel. What a coinkydink. Bruce and Jason's paths intertwine when they meet up at the hotel and explain why each of them are there. Peter Brando also happens to be, with you guessed it, Sharmin Rosen. Everything is converging at one location, and it almost feels so unlikely that it'd be impossible. After Brando and Rosen hop into a car, the Caped Crusaders follow with jet-powered hang gliders. They reach a camp at the Israeli border where the selling of the missile is taking place and the Joker can be found. Batman and Robin interrupt the sale though and incapacitate the terrorists with the help of Rosen. When the missile is fired by one of the terrorists, it blows up in its launcher. The nuclear warhead itself fails to detonate by some miracle, most likely due to the Joker disassembling and reassembling it. The Joker escapes, and Robin asks Rosen if she has ever been to Gotham and had a baby, to which she says no. Jason refuses to return to America until he has located the last 2 women. Batman decides to stick around and help him. While that's happening, the Joker has disguised himself and buys a plane ticket to Ethiopia. Bruce and Jason continue their search for Jason's mother, learning that their next prospect, mercenary Shiva Wuzin, was kidnapped outside Hotel Blue shortly before they had arrived. After interrogating some criminals, they learn that she had been taken to Pashar Pass in Bekaa Valley. Meanwhile, the Joker meets with Dr. Sheila Haywood, the 3rd woman on Jason Todd's list. Unbeknownst to Robin, she had past history with the Clown Prince of Crime, who knows about her illegal operations on teenage girls in Gotham. She's currently working at a famine relief camp, hoping to put all that behind her, but the Joker wants to blackmail her, threatening to tell the world what she had done unless she gives him truckloads of medical supplies that he can sell on the black market. Batman and Robin reach a terrorist camp where Shiva Wuzin is supposedly being held, only she is nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, Robin is knocked unconscious from behind, and Shiva Wuzin is revealed to be Lady Shiva all along. Batman fights Lady Shiva to a stalemate, viewing her as an equal in terms of martial arts skill. Robin comes too, giving the Dark Knight an opening with the distraction and allowing him to take her out. With Shiva now handcuffed, Batman uses a truth serum on her to determine whether or not she had any children. Shiva reluctantly says no. Once the drug wears off, they leave Shiva and head to Ethiopia to find Dr. Haywood, the last woman on Jason Todd's list of mother candidates. They reach the refugee camp, and the second Jason is introduced, Sheila realizes who he is, and the two embrace. She explains what had happened and why she wasn't able to take care of him, but quickly excuses Jason so she can deal with some business matters. The Joker arrives at the camp and demands for his supplies, taking Haywood with him to the medical warehouse, with Jason on hot pursuit via motorcycle. The Joker and his men switch out the boxes of medical supplies with boxes containing deadly laughing gas, which are then loaded onto relief trucks. Jason returns to the camp, where Bruce was waiting for him to finish with his mom, and tells him about the Joker. With the relief trucks on their way to the refugee camp, Batman pulls out a Batcopter and plans on intercepting them before they can release their poisonous gas. He tells Jason to watch over the warehouse, but wait until he returns before going in to fight the Joker. He's far too dangerous to face alone. But with his mother in danger, Jason ignores Batman's advice and heads into the warehouse to save her, revealing his secret identity in the process. In a shocking turn of events, his mother lures him to the Joker and reveals that she has been embezzling money from the camp for quite some time. She's not going to let him screw everything up. With Robin now in the palm of his hands, the Joker and his men put the beat down on him. The sadistic clown grabs a crowbar and proceeds to bludgeon the young man repeatedly, never losing his smile. Batman reaches the convoy, regretting his decision to leave Jason, and his copter is damaged by incoming fire, forcing him to bail out. He defeats the soldiers guarding it and tells the relief workers to unload all the boxes and leave them for the military to pick up. He then heads back to the camp, though the truck he is driving will now take him much longer than it did before. The Joker double-crosses Dr. Haywood, didn't see that coming, and decides to destroy all the evidence of what he has done to Robin. As the boy Wonder lay severely wounded, Joker and his men tie up Sheila and place a bomb by her feet before they depart. Still alive, barely, Jason does everything he can to save his mother. As the timer ticks down, Sheila tries to carry her son out. When they reach the door, they realize it's locked, and the explosive detonates. Minutes away, Batman watches on in horror as the flames engulf what was once the warehouse. He runs into the debris and finds Dr. Haywood. She tells him what had happened and that Jason tried to save her. He's a good kid and threw himself in front of her during the blast. Despite what she did to him, he still loved his mother regardless. She then dies in Batman's arms. The Dark Knight continues his search and finds Jason's mangled body. He has no pulse and is cold to the touch. He's lost him. The heartbroken Batman picks up Robin and carries his body away in one of the most iconic splash pages in comic book history. As Bruce Wayne, he gets rid of all evidence linking Jason Todd to Robin before calling the authorities, and will have the bodies of Sheila Haywood and Todd flown back to the United States for burial. Before leaving the Middle East, Batman investigates Joker's hideout where all of his men lie dead from Joker toxin. He then finds a note left by the Joker himself, telling him where to meet him. Back in the US, a funeral for Sheila Haywood and Jason Todd is held, with very few in attendance. In the Batcave, Batman deduces that Joker wants to meet him in New York City, at the United Nations Plaza. Instead of finding the Joker, Superman arrives instead surprisingly. He tells Batman that Iran has a new ambassador who possesses diplomatic immunity to any crimes in the US, and any he may have committed before obtaining the position. Batman can't touch him. When Superman doesn't tell him who this new ambassador is, Batman proceeds to punch him, nearly breaking his hand in the process. But Batman's fears become reality when the new ambassador is revealed as the Clown Prince of Crime himself. Batman's hands are tied, and the Joker is seemingly untouchable now. Later, CIA agent Ralph Bundy informs Batman to not interfere and to keep his hands off Joker. If not, Superman has been sent by the President to keep him in line. Even though Superman assumes Jason Todd was Robin and that Joker was responsible for his death, nothing can be done about it. It's the law, though Batman reminds him that the law doesn't always mean justice. Later that night, Batman confronts Joker in the Iranian embassy as he prepares for his speech. He tells him to give up and to turn himself in. Joker refuses and confesses to the murder of Robin, realizing Batman is snapped as a result. My favorite back and forth moment between them is when Joker says, "Even a madman can add 2 plus 2, and Batman responds by saying, "And come up with 5. I love it." The following night, the United Nations gather in the assembly with Joker planning to kill everyone in the room. With the help of some federal contacts, Bruce Wayne manages to get a seat acting as an unofficial observer. Following his speech, the Joker begins releasing laughing gas into the crowd as Bruce Wayne changes into Batman. A nearby security guard breaks the end of Joker's dispensing gun, and then begins to inhale all of the lethal gas, or it would be lethal if he wasn't Superman in disguise. As the Man of Steel flies away to get rid of all the gas, the Joker activates Plan B and detonates a bomb under the podium which kills several people in the assembly. The Joker runs to the roof where a helicopter is waiting. Batman grabs hold of it though and enters the cabin. One of the terrorists begin firing a machine gun which injures Joker and Batman while also killing the pilot. As the chopper descends, Batman jumps out into the water and it crashes into a nearby dock and explodes. Superman returns to help him, and Joker's body isn't found. His rivalry with the Dark Knight is always left unresolved. Like I mentioned at the start of this video, a death in the family is one of the most significant storylines in Batman history. The tragic events that take place in it have been brought up countless times over the years, and have greatly impacted Bruce Wayne to his very core. After Jason dies, Batman nearly breaks his long-standing moral code of not killing when he is once again forced to go up against the Joker, knowing what he's done. He understands that ending it all would leave him with a life full of regret, but justice is more important. Joker must pay for his actions. Now he must take on the clown alone, which he had done so many times before, but the comic makes it perfectly clear that Batman sometimes needs a companion. He sometimes feels alone. Though Jason was skilled, a natural, Bruce knew taking him on as a partner was risky, and that it came with a lot of rebellious behavior and emotional baggage, but he didn't care. Bruce blinded himself to it. All he wanted was a partner, and nothing else mattered to him at that point. Jason Todd is Batman's biggest failure, not for who he was and what he himself achieved, because Batman was proud of him in most instances. No, it was because Bruce ignored the signs, turned his back on his instincts. He knew Jason wasn't ready to be Robin, that he was too young and unstable to take on the role. He hadn't accepted the death of his parents and his aggressive, rebellious behavior, not to mention endless pursuit of his mother, was evidence of that in this story. The comic killed off Jason Todd and upset a lot of fans that had gotten behind the character, not to mention the final vote ended up being so close. The story basically depicts him as this troubled youth with personal demons for the vast majority, which I mean Todd clearly was. But realize, the comic sort of attempts to fulfill both sides of that final outcome in many ways. Jason perseveres in his critical condition after being beaten within an inch of his life. He tries to save his mother despite what she had done to him. When the explosion goes off, he attempts to shield her from the blast. These are incredibly heroic things being performed by a not-so-perfect person, but that's the thing, no one is perfect, we all have flaws. It's during these key moments, like the one inside that warehouse, that someone's true colors are revealed, when being heroic matters most. Yeah, Jason Todd died, and yeah, he had a fair share of issues, but he was a hero through and through. He went out swinging. If the vote called for his death and DC were going to follow through with it, then this was probably the best way they could have done it, all things considered. Following Todd's death, you could tell something was up with Batman. He surrounded himself with an even greater emotional wall than he had before, now that he was, for all intents and purposes, alone once again. Keep in mind that he had destroyed all evidence of Jason being Robin, so many believe he is still alive, something Batman tries to avoid talking about as much as possible. While taking on a sniper, he also needs to remind himself why he became Batman in the first place, what all this is for. It's obvious that his very foundation has been shaken following the death of Jason. He also takes on a case tracking down a young boy who went missing 7 years prior, a case in which many investigators had given up on. When Commissioner Gordon asks him why he pursued it so relentlessly, he doesn't answer. In some ways, he was hoping by finding the kid, it would give him closure with Jason, which of course, it doesn't. The relationships with his other allies, such as Nightwing, Dick Grayson, sour because Bruce has become bitter following Jason's death and is afraid of working alongside anyone, feeling he doesn't need partners and doesn't want one ever again. Batman eventually comes around though, finding a third Robin in Tim Drake during the events of the 1989 storyline A Lonely Place of Dying, following a little persuasion from Nightwing after Batman's initial refusal. But that's a topic for another day. In hindsight, the whole should Jason Todd have died or not fiasco that happened following the release of A Death in the Family seems kind of silly now, especially when it's brought up by fans today. I get that the final vote was nearly tied, and that a lot of people enjoyed his incarnation of Robin. It must have been really frustrating as readers to see him go after only being in the role for 5 years. That said, his death led to arguably one of the greatest reinventions in comic book history, so we got that. This has been NerdGasm. Let me know what you thought of A Death in the Family in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to share it and subscribe to be notified of all future content I release. Thank you for taking the time to watch my videos, and I will see all of you in the next one. Take care.